start of grilling season. Everybody's getting their barbecues out and their smokers and their green eggs. And I thought, who better to speak to than Stacey Weisberg from the Butcher Shop. The Butcher Shop is, I think, a really great Canadian success story, and this is a great Canadian family. It's a family-run operation that's still run in the same boutique way it was however many years ago in Kensington Market, but on a much larger scale. And they're able to maintain and grow and have that longevity because of the trust factor. That's so important, especially today. The trust factor. You know, the butcher is almost like an apothecary for carnivores. You know, so you go to the butcher shop and they have all the proteins that you could imagine, from beef to even kangaroo, and all the best quality, consistently the best quality. And when it comes to proteins like Wagyu, for example, they don't just purvey Wagyu. That family, the father and the two sons, they go to Japan, to the Wagyu auctions, and they source from source brands that even I've never heard of, like snow-aged Wagyu or Kobe wine beef. You know, they have incredible product, and they have a relatively new product that's their own, which is a hamburger blended with jamon iberico and Wagyu beef, which
Wow.
sounds, it's mind-blowing. So I'm really happy to speak to him now because I think he's a great guy and he runs a great business and people love the butcher shop. And it's the start of the season for that. So I'd love to introduce to you Stacey Weisberg. There he is.
Hello, Stacey.
Well, good afternoon and happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you. You know, I've seen you before somewhere. I don't know, but your face is familiar.
Well, a familiar face is usually a nice thing, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate all of the kind words that Adam has said. I actually love the analogy of an apothecary for carnivores. I think it's wonderful. I may need to use that again, Adam.
All right. Well, first, could you tell me what is the difference between grilling and barbecuing?
I mean, you're asking a very difficult questions to start, Adam. I
Okay.
thought we were going to start off with a softball here, but
Okay.
I'll do my best to describe. And listen, I'm no expert by any means, but I do love what I do in supplying great quality beef sourced from all over the world, and all meat products for that matter,
Yeah.
to people in Toronto and Ontario and in Canada. So we're very passionate. My father, my brother, and I at the butcher shop, and yeah, we're very proud to be able to deliver great quality meats to carnivores in the province of Ontario. So you ask a very interesting question between grilling and barbecuing, and I'm not sure that I know the formal definition, but in my opinion, and in my opinion only, you know, when I say that I like to grill, for me that's usually, you know, at a barbecue on an open flame with something that, you know, will take a relatively shorter period of time. My understanding of barbecue would likely come from some of the southern states in the U.S. And I
Yes.
think barbecue for, you know, for Texans, for example, would actually take a much longer time, and they would be slightly larger cuts. So for some examples, for me, you know, I would go grill a steak for me to eat myself or to share with my wife and my kids. I think if I was to go barbecue, I would take a 15-pound brisket to a smoker and cook that for 12 hours. So again, not to be too long-winded about it, but for me, barbecuing is something that would be of a smaller portion that you would do at a grill in a relatively short period of time. Where I think barbecue is a term that's used quite a lot in some of the southern states, where there are big cuts like pork shoulders or briskets, and they spend a lot of time in a smoker, as much as 12 hours.
And yeah, go ahead.
Who who are the most of your customers? Are they women or men?
That's a very good question. Information I'd love to have. The butcher shop actually started, as Adam alluded, 43 years ago as a retail butcher shop in the Kensington Market, downtown Toronto. And at the time, it was anyone interested in great meats, cut custom to order for them to enjoy with their families. But there was a pivot made very shortly into the history of the butcher shop where it was chefs that would come and shop at my dad's store. And for only 3 years of being down the Kensington Market, he actually moved to the facility where we are now and focused essentially entirely on wholesale. So restaurants and hotels and golf clubs and whatnot. And I think today there are as many male chefs as there are female chefs, which is a wonderful thing. From all parts of the world here in Toronto, cooking all different kinds of cuisines for all of us to enjoy. I think being a chef is a very personal thing. I think they're doing their best to give great experiences to people and share foods with them that they're passionate about, that they've learned about throughout their careers. So I think, sorry to make a long-winded answer to your very short question, but I think in serving chefs today, there are certainly as many men as there are women. And when people do come and shop with us for themselves at our store or online for that matter, I think it's an even split. I think there are as many female shoppers with us as there are male. And I hope that answers your question, Sarah.
It does, but as far as steak is concerned, it was always the man's territory. My father when I was little, my father used to go on Sundays to the butcher shop to buy meat for the week every Sunday. He was the one who chose the steaks, the chops, the briskets, whatever. Then when I was married and I set up the barbecue, my husband wanted it. Here, I'll do it. He was in charge of cooking the steak. That was the man's work. And so somehow to me, steaks and cuts of beef like that, that's the man's domain. I don't know why, but it seems that way in my life.
I think it's because we like fire.
You too, Adam. You like to be the one to barbecue and to
Yes.
grill.
Yes. And, I was thinking about a couple of things you said. I think because a lot of restaurateurs and chefs buy from you, the quality is higher. Like I have been to butchers before or supermarkets where you bring, let's say it's chicken, you bring it home and there's so much trimming that I have to do. Whereas when I have purchased chicken or lamb or beef, bison from you, it's always trimmed perfectly. So that when I get home, I don't have to think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to spend an hour now getting, fat off of this. It's always a very clean product, and I appreciate that.
Well, we take so much care to prepare things in the easiest way that we can, and I think we've said a lot of things here, but certainly kitchens have become a lot smaller. I think at home and also at restaurants, and the more that we can do to support chefs, both professional or just those in their own homes, the more grateful they absolutely are, and the easier it is to prepare a wonderful meal. I will tell you, Sarah, I do love to barbecue myself. There's no question. My mother-in-law, who we just had a Mother's Day brunch with, cooks a mean rib steak, as good as any man in front of any barbecue. So I think whomever wants to take charge absolutely should.
Do you have any products this year that I mentioned the burger that was a blend of jamon iberico and Wagyu. Do you have anything that we should be looking for in 2025?
Well, I mean, listen, Adam, you know that I could talk for hours about different kinds of steaks, but I'll do my best to keep the answer somewhat short here. I think,
Uh,
listen, when we think about things that we want to barbecue, I would say that, or I should say grill, after I spent some time talking about the difference between barbecuing and grilling. I think the most traditional steaks would be a strip loin steak, a ribeye steak, and a tenderloin steak. And of course, those can come on the bone or off the bone. People believe that when these meats are served on the bone, there's additional flavor. And essentially, those are the most traditional steak and cuts that we sell. Those, we offer as locally sourced. We offer them, sourced from different parts of Canada, Western Canada. We offer them sourced from the United States, so U.S. prime grade, for example. We order Wagyu, as Adam was chatting about earlier, from Japan and also from Australia. So I think if you do want to, try a strip loin steak, I think it's so exciting to try strip loin steaks, perhaps from different regions, to have an appreciation for what they all taste like and what they all can deliver. But I think outside of the most traditional steaks, like the strip loins and the ribeyes and the tenders, I think it's so exciting to try cuts which you may not be as familiar with. And I think today we've done a wonderful job to harvest so many cuts which, traditionally we wouldn't use. So some exciting cuts that I like to barbecue these days, which
Mhm.
are not necessarily on people's radar. One would be a flat iron. And it's a cut that comes from the shoulder. It's incredibly flavorful and tender. And it's a great steak. Another one would be a skirt steak, which comes from, the middle of the animal, equally very, very flavorful, very tender. And a great steak to try. So I think thinking about some of the more non-traditional cuts is also a very exciting thing. As much as you can try a strip loin steak from different regions and compare the differences amongst those that you're dining with, you can also try different cuts and see what they are all about. And I think that's one of the ways which we make the experience so much more exciting, by everyone taking a slice of something different.
yeah.
And trying it and deciding, what you like and what others like. And I think that's what it's all about. It's the experience. It's about eating together. It's about trying different things from all over the world, or just locally, and enjoying the barbecue, enjoying the meals, and enjoying the summertime.
I
Uh,
love that.
yeah,
I think that's so fun to, like if you got, let's say, a strip loin from Canada, from Japan, and from Australia, you cooked all the same way, and then you compared. Or if you had one Canadian product, with different cuts, like you just said, that comparative tasting it's really fun.
yeah. And Adam, you alluded earlier, is what we do different for restaurants than what one would find in a retail grocery store? And we don't like to make it overly complicated, but we believe we just need two things to have a good steak, and they would be, flavor is one, and tenderness is the other.
Mhm.
Tenderness, we believe, comes from age. So the longer that we age our meat, the more tender it becomes. And
Mhm.
that can be both wet age or dry age. The principle holds for both. Again, the longer you age it, the more tender it becomes. So I would encourage everyone to try some wet age steaks and some dry age steaks. Flavor is the other thing that I think that you need. And flavor really comes from that fat, that marbling, and usually the more of it, the more flavor the meat is. So in Canada, of course, we have single A and double A and triple A and prime. In parts like Australia, they have Wagyu grades that go from 7 to 8 to 9. And of course, in Japan, there's a letter grade and a number grade. Sometimes A and 5 would be the highest. So what we do at the butcher shop for chefs of all kind is to age the meat as long as we can so that it eats tender, and also try and source the highest grades that we can so that they eat as flavorful as possible. And I think that's what we do.
Grain fed or grass fed?
That's the question.
Wow, I thought I was going to be asked easy questions. Hard one. Well, where should I begin? I think traditionally, animals that ate just grass didn't develop flavor like they do today. So traditionally, people would eat grass-fed steaks, and they wouldn't be as flavorful as perhaps grain-fed steaks. But today, we can certainly grow grasses in different parts of the world that are, quite full and quite wholesome and allow these animals, a very healthy diet. And as a result, they can be quite flavorful. Grains, I think we know, delivers great marbling and great flavor. Sarah, we could also say, and what about corn as well? In the United States, the Americans love to feed their animals corn. So, certain parts of Australia and warmer climates in the world, they love to feed grasses to their animals, and Canada certainly grains because we grow lots of it. And then in the U.S., there's lots of corn. Interestingly, in Japan, they'll feed their animals lots of rice stalks and sweet potatoes because it tends to be whatever these countries grow the most of is what they'll feed to their animals. So, I'm not going to pick a favorite right now because it's like, telling one child I love more than another child. It's not fair, but I love the idea again of perhaps grilling, one of each, something from Canada, something from the US, something from Japan, trying them all and determining, for yourself what you love the most.
Just when I thought I was going to be a vegetarian, you bring me back.
Then I did my job, Adam.
Yes.
I did my job.
Well, thank you. Oh, you want to ask one more?
One more thing.
Okay.
How is it that both of you boys, you and your brother, went into the family business? It's not that it's a manufacturing company or something like that. It's being a butcher is a personal. It's a very personal business. How is it that both of you liked it enough and enjoyed it enough to say, we want to do that too, Dad?
Yeah, and listen, Sarah, it's a great question. I begged my dad for almost 15 years if I could join the family business, and he said no for many, many years. So I actually had the opportunity to experience other industries, none of which were food related, but some of which I loved very much. So I always wanted to work with my dad, and I think it's probably because, frankly, I didn't get to spend much time with him when I was growing up because he worked so much.
Of course.
And I think that was probably one of the reasons that I wanted to work with him and work in the meat business. I think second, Sarah, like I love food. I've always enjoyed watching the Food Network and reading cooking books and like cooking myself. And that's I think another reason which drew me to food and the food business. And there's something wonderful about being able to work with family, being able to work with products that I love, and it's also a family business. So being in a family business means there aren't necessarily the red tape and the bureaucracies which come from certain organizations and big corporations. And I love to be able to, like Adam alluded to initially, come up with an idea like mixing some Wagyu beef and some Iberico pork into a burger and seeing if the people love it. And it's a wonderful kind of playground to be able to be in, to experiment and to try new things. So again, I apologize for the long-winded answer here, but maybe 3 reasons why I'm so grateful to be able to work in the meat business with my family.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, it's lovely to meet you.
And to you as well, Sarah, wishing you once again a happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, guys. Adam, it's always a pleasure to see you. And thank you for thinking of us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.